All right, I wanted to do one last video on CLOV, kind of a recap of the gamma squeeze play that didn't work out, and my outlook on this moving forward, and also clear up some things that I've kind of come across as I've been doing some research on CLOV and reading around on Reddit and things like that. So first off, what happened last week? I covered a lot of this in a different video, but you know, the earnings report was good. And then Hindenburg came out with some BS short report that drove the stock down, and then new sell walls got set up. And then kind of in the middle of that, the stock looked like it was still trying to climb and still move up, but the market was getting drawn down bad. The market saw kind of a wild downturn over the last 2 weeks, and again last week, and it just that's pulling down the stock. You have people shorting it, setting up sell walls. So we had all this stuff working against us, and it didn't work out. It was a gamble. Obviously, the shorters and market makers didn't want us to hit these big strikes for the reasons I laid out in my previous videos, and they succeeded. It happens. It's part of the game. So what do I think about CLOV moving forward? In terms of a gamma squeeze, I don't see a ton of retail interest right now or open interest on the option chain to make this a good short-term play. Okay, there's some decent open interest in August and December, but it's nowhere near what we saw last week. I mean, last week was kind of the setup that would have made for this great short-term, let's double, triple up on this stock. Now, that doesn't mean this stock can't move upwards between now and then. I'm just saying right now, a gamma squeeze is off the table. Okay, now, one of my previous videos got a ton of viewers on it, and I was shocked. So I went in and looked, and it was like most of the traffic was coming from Reddit. So I went and found this subreddit called CLOV, r/CLOV, and a lot of great information on there. I started looking through there and actually finding some other stuff. But one of the things I came across in there was a lot of people talking about a short squeeze in CLOV. And I'm not saying that there can't be, but it's really hard to tell if there's going to be some short squeeze coming up anytime soon. Okay, you know, obviously anything can happen. Usually, what I always look at is what the short interest is, and that's confusing as hell now because I feel like all the numbers that are being reported on a lot of these popular stocks and highly shorted stocks are being manipulated. They don't seem to be the same across all the websites reporting them, and it just just the whole way that it's reported in general, where it's every 15 days and everything, is kind of off too. But what seems to be consistent is that the number of shares shorted in CLOV right now is in like the 30 million range, 34 million, 38 million. But in order to figure out the short interest, you kind of have to know what the free float is, and that seems to be different depending on where you look. So like on Yahoo, it reports right now that the free float of CLOV is 16 million. Well, if there's only 16 million shares that are available for retail to buy, which is what the free float is, right? That's what retail is available to go out and buy. So if there's only 16 million there, then yeah, the short interest is like somewhere in the 300% range, which I know someone reported that Ortex came out and said that it was like 300%. And I mean, if that's the case, yeah, I could see if as people start to realize that that actually is true, this thing will probably really kick off and people will start piling in because everyone right now seems to be looking for the next squeeze. Now, Market Watch is another one I found, and they have the free float reported to be somewhere around 109 million. Well, if that's the case, then you're looking at probably a 30%, which is still extremely high short interest on a stock. So there's potential there for a short squeeze, but depending on which numbers are right and everything, in order to really create some sort of short squeeze, you're going to need a lot of retail momentum, which, like I said, it seems like the retail kind of meme stock status of this is kind of falling off, so I don't really see that. Or we're going to need a catalyst, like some sort of major announcement from the company to kick it off, which could come at any time. Another thing I wanted to discuss, just because I noticed on that CLOV subreddit, it was there, so this doesn't necessarily apply to CLOV so much as it just a discussion that I kind of saw going on in there, and was, that option prices or options contracts don't affect the price of a stock, and I don't think that's true at all. So to me, option prices and stock prices work in tandem. right? So like if a stock price goes up because people are buying it and you know the price of the stock goes up, that's how the market works. Then at the same time, the option price of the contract is going to go up, right? I mean, I think that's basically like the general consensus, and that's kind of what most of the discussion that I saw in there was. Um, so that's usually how it works. However, options purchase can also affect the stock price through delta hedging. Okay, and I know I talked about that in one of my previous videos, but I just wanted to reiterate, like, when you purchase a call, if it's not covered, so let me back up a second. So a covered call means that I own 100 shares, I'm going to sell you the contract. So when that happens, if somebody buys that call contract, yeah, that doesn't affect the price of the stock at all because I own 100 shares. I'm not going to go in the market and buy anything. And if whatever happens, happens, option either expires, worthless, or it gets exercised and someone takes my 100 calls away. Happens. Okay. But what also happens is you have market makers that sell these calls to people and they don't own the shares yet. So typically when that happens, you know, they'll have to hedge. So if you go in and you buy options on something, and let's say the delta of that option is 0.24, that means every time you buy a contract, the market maker to hedge needs to go out and buy 24 shares. Well, what happens when you buy shares? The stock goes up. So, like I said, they kind of work in tandem. If someone all of a sudden goes in and buys 1,000 option contracts with a delta of zero point 0.5, that's 50,000 shares, right? 50 shares per contract times 1,000 contracts. That's 50,000 shares that the market maker is going to have to go buy in the market right now. And what happens when they go and buy 50,000 shares? The price of the stock goes up. So, without going too much more into it, they work in tandem. Option contracts can help drive prices up, and when the stock price of something goes up, that helps influence the price of the options contract. And really, when you start talking about like short squeezes, for those of you guys that are into the short squeezes, the leverage that's provided by options contracts is usually what's used to really give a short squeeze its momentum because of what I just talked about. So, you know, if I have $1,000 to spend and I really want to influence the price, buying $1,000 worth of, let's just say, a $10 stock is only going to give me 100 shares. Well, 100 shares isn't going to move a stock too much. But if I can go in with that same money and buy, let's say, these contracts for $10 a piece, and now I could buy 100 contracts for $1,000. You know, let's say the delta is even just 10. Well, that's, you know, 10 shares times 100 contracts. That's 1,000 shares that now get bought in the market. So that's going to influence the price. So options provide leverage at the same time. And a lot of times when you're trying to get a squeeze, and I'm not recommending like, oh, if you want to go kick off a short squeeze on CLOV, go buy these, because it's not something that me and you can do. These are bigger players that go in and buy thousands of contracts, but that leverage absolutely helps move the price. So I just wanted to clarify that. So, anyways, without carrying on too much, my own outlook on CLOV moving forward. I think it's a buy, but long term, because there's no catalyst I can see to really give it momentum right now. I see it having great potential to eventually double from here as it gets back into that $15 range down the road, which is the target that most analysts have set for it. I know some of them downgraded it recently, but the consensus still seems to be about between $13 and $15. So right now, sitting below $7, I think it's a great buy. And it seemed to somewhat bottomed out. Although anything can happen, the way the market's been lately, if the market goes on another drastic drop like we saw 2 weeks ago, yeah, CLOV can absolutely go down just like any other stock. But it kind of seems like it bottomed out right now, like it's finding a bottom. And so I think this is a good place to buy shares. Me personally, I'm not looking to buy shares right now only because I don't want to tie up my capital, but I do see this as a long-term play. So what I'm going to look into is more longer-term options, only because, like I said, I have my money, my capital tied up somewhere else, and if I wanted to buy 1,000 shares of CLOV right now, I'd be looking at spending almost 7,000, and it's not really something that I want to get into. So the IV is super low right now, and I think this has long-term potential. So I'm going to look at some of the long-term options, and what I mean by that is And again, I really want to reiterate that I think this is, if you have the money and you want to put it into shares, it's a great play to put into shares right now. But for me, I'm looking at, somewhere in here. This is basically the end of the year, January 22. Um, some of these longer terms. So maybe like this $8 strike for the end of the year. I can get those for $1.50 a piece, $150. So if I wanted to basically control 1,000 shares, I can go in and buy 10 of these contracts. It'll cost me 1,500, so $1,500, as opposed to 1,000 shares costing me $7,000 if I actually bought the shares. So if I buy 10 of these, the price needs to get to 950 by the end of the year. If I wanted to be safer, and this is probably where I'm going to look at, is in this January of 2023, and maybe even move out, because now I'm going a year and a half out. Maybe move up to like this $10 range. And again, each one of these contracts gives me access to 100 shares. It's safe because it's way down the road. I would imagine that CLOV is going to be way past $10 by that point. At least that's what I'm banking on. So this is what I'm going to be looking to open up. It's probably somewhere around here, like this $10 strike for 2023. Cost me $200 a contract. And I basically just need to be at $12 to break even a year and a half from now, which I have a feeling, just from what I've been looking at, as I've been watching this CLOV thing unfold. I've been kind of heavily invested into it for the last month. It didn't work out, but the more I've been reading about the company and everything, I think it has the potential to move even further. So my play right now is going to be to open leaps, which is long-term option contracts. But I also think that shares are safer, um, you know, and regardless, I think this is a great long-term play. It could have some short-term potential if something else came about, like a gamma squeeze or a short squeeze type of play. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about anything, or if I misstated something, leave it in the comments and I'll make another video. I'm having fun doing this. I hope you guys are having fun watching. All right, have a good day.